everyone, my name is Leslie, and today we're going to be going over different citation types. So what I mean by this are summarizing, paraphrasing, and actually quoting something within your text. So let's get started. So like I said, citation types, that's what we're doing today. So the first one, paraphrasing. I know that initially, kind of when people hear about paraphrasing and summaries, they're kind of like, isn't that exactly the same thing? And that's honestly what I thought too, because I thought the words were just interchangeable and people were like, oh, you paraphrase that, oh, you summarize that. But in reality, it's a little more complicated than that, but I promise it's not difficult at all. But paraphrasing is similar to summarizing in that you read over a text and interpret it in your own words. And that's kind of how you include it within your text. So you read it, but you make sure that it's in your own words, kind of what you took from the reading. Paraphrasing, when you paraphrase, it includes main points and subpoints. That's really important because that is one of the differences between paraphrasing, is that it includes both the main point of the essay or the reading and the main subpoints as well. So it doesn't just kind of pick and choose it. It has everything together. It's not copying the text directly in any way. So you're not quoting anything. You're not just switching up one word in the sentence to switch it up. It doesn't have any direct text in that way. It's almost equal to or slightly shorter than the original text. So that also just goes to show you you're not going to be quoting exactly because you're just going to be switching up the words, and it should be shorter, which means you can't quote, or it should be about equal length. And it's used to simplify the original work to easier terms. So when you guys get into high school, if you're reading a journal or a news article and it's really long or some of the words are complicated, that's a really good time to paraphrase because you're going to put it in your own words for other people to understand. So an example that I have is, so the original sentence is giraffes like acacia leaves and hay, and they can consume 75 pounds of food a day. So that's our original sentence. And the paraphrase sentence is a giraffe can eat up to 75 pounds of acacia leaves and hay daily. So do you see how that still includes the main points and the subpoints? And it still includes everything that that original sentence was talking about, but it's different. So in this first one, they're kind of expanding on it a lot more. So giraffes like acacia leaves and hay, and they can eat about 75 pounds of food a day. So instead of saying what they like and then they can consume, they say a giraffe can eat up to 75 pounds of acacia leaves and hay. And that makes perfect sense. So I hope that that makes a little more sense in that you see how they're switching it up, but it's still essentially the same and almost about the same length. Now, another example is that was with one sentence. So you might be like, oh, that's really simple. And it is, but then it starts to get a little trickier if you have a larger amount. So let's say now you have a mini paragraph that you need to paraphrase. So here's the original. In The Sopranos, the mob is besieged as much by inner infidelity as it is by the federal government. Early in the series, the greatest threat to Tony's family is his own biological family. One of his closest associates turns witness for the FBI. His mother colludes with his uncle to contract a hit on Tony, and his kids click through websites that track the federal crackdown in Tony's gangland. So this is about a TV show called The Sopranos. So as you can see, you're like, okay, there's some of those words in there are a little hard to understand, colludes, infidelity, things like that. So in the paraphrased, let's see. In the first season of The Sopranos, Tony Soprano's mobster activities are more threatened by members of his biological family than by agents of the federal government. This family betrayal is multi-pronged. Tony's closest friend and associate is an FBI informant. His mother and uncle are conspiring to have him killed, and his children are surfing the web for information about his activities. So do you see how it's essentially the same thing, just slightly twisted, and it kind of has their own take on it? So he includes here about, instead of kind of talking about each person individually and what they're each doing. Here at the end, they kind of just brought them all together, his closest friends and associates, his mom and uncle, and his children, and everything that they're doing. Now, summarizing. Summarizing is used when you need only the main idea of the text. So as you can see here, everything that they stated in the original is stated in the paraphrased version. But now, when we are talking about summarizing, it's only that main idea of the text. So it is, again, your own words, but only a bit of the original text. And it's much shorter than what you would find in the original text. So this would not be that long. So here I have an example. These are 3 different summary examples, depending on what you need. And here's the original. So the original is Tom and Bill were walking to school. They passed over a bridge as they did every day. But on this day, the river was full, the water was clear, and the sun was shining in a cloudless sky. Tom said, "Let's go fishing." Bill wasn't so sure. "We have a test today. Shouldn't we go to class?" "Nonsense," said Tom. You only live once. You only live once. A day like this won't come along again." Bill wasn't sure this was a good idea, but suddenly a fish jumped from the sparkling water. He decided Tom was right. They should definitely skip class on such a nice day. Now, Tom and Bill, I don't know what kind of school they go to. I guess they don't care about audits. I guess they don't care about their education. So don't be a Tom and Bill. But as you can see, just from reading it, we know, okay, Tom and Bill were walking to school. But Tom doesn't want to go to class. So Bill isn't 100% sure about it, but sees a fish and decides we should skip. That's my kind of summary. That's not super formal, but just my summary from the text. So that might be a good thing to practice on your own, is just summarizing right off the bat before writing something formal. So 3 different summaries that were taken from this are: Tom and Bill were walking to school on a beautiful day. Tom thought they should go fishing. Bill thought they should go to school because they had a test. Tom thought it would be a shame to waste the day. Bill finally agreed. All right, good. And you see how that's much shorter than this one. And again, walking to school on a nice day, Tom couldn't resist skipping school and going fishing. Bill only agreed because of Tom's persuasion and the nice day. Shorter, but still gets to the main point. And summary 3, 2 friends decided to skip school and go fishing. That one is very general. You would probably use that if you were just talking to like a classmate or a friend or a teacher about what the text was about quickly. 2 friends decided to skip school and go fishing. But I really like 1 and 2. That could be something that you could quote in your text. So direct quotation. This is obviously much different than paraphrasing and summarizing because you're going to use directly something from a person, book, journal, so it's an exact quote. So if I were to say, "Wow, it's a nice day," you would quote it as Leslie, a Gear Up mentor, stated, "Today was a beautiful day." And that's exactly what I said. So it uses the exact words of the writer and puts them in quotation marks. However, you need to include that quotation inside a sentence of your own, which tells who said it and why it's important to your own argument. We're going to get to that in a second. But when you use quotation marks, this is also something that you learn in high school, but you don't just want to use a quote and forget about it. You want to use the quote, but then explain why you're using it. And you're not going to say, "I'm using this quote because," but you'll quote something and then you'll state, "This is important because." If you're mentioning a source for the first time, you also need to include the name of the author and the article, or the name of the author in the book, the name of the article in the journal, whatever it is and whatever the author is, you'll need to mention that when you first quote it. So if you were quoting me, again, it would be Leslie Flores from Gear Up's, let's pretend we had a book called Gear Up 101. So you'd be like, Leslie Flores from Gear Up 101 states, in her book Gear Up 101 states, "Wow, it's a beautiful day." But then afterward, you only need to mention my last name if you use the source again. So my last name is Flores. So at the beginning, you could say, okay, so author Leslie Flores from her book Gear Up 101 states, "Wow, it's a beautiful day." But later, you could just say Flores states, blah, 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 blah. That makes sense. So an example, I know that got cut off there and it says exam. No, there's not an exam. It was just example. So here we have the direct quotes, and here's our introduction, or kind of the first thing that we were talking about, stating who it is. So critic Alex Lee says, and this is her quote, "The frequent references to the color blue are used to suggest that the family is struggling to cope with the loss of their matriarch." There you go. And here is kind of what I was talking about. This is exactly what you want to do when you're writing essays and when you use quotes. So here is a quote, and it says, according to McKinney's research, this means that they've already talked about this person before. We're going to pretend her name is Sarah McKinney, and she has a research article that we already mentioned. So McKinney's research, according to McKinney's research, and this is her quote, adults who do yoga at least 3 times a day have lower blood pressure, better sleeping patterns, and fewer everyday frustrations. Here is where the quote ends, just right there. So this commentary part is pretty much, so I just want to show that again. Here, this is the only quote. This is the direct quote you'd be using. But here is your commentary. So this is where you're going to step in and give your personal opinion on the quote and pretty much why you used it. So this shows that yoga can have a positive impact on people's health. So incorporating it into the workplace can improve employee health outcomes. There you go. You're showing why you're using it, and you're not just throwing a quote out there. So I hope that this was, as helpful as possible. And if you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. But this should go over the general things. And if you do need any more help, come back to this video, look at it again, send me any questions. Thank you, and have a great day.